Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. Questions are being raised about the January 2017 visit to Israel by Prime Minister Andrew Holness. The matter was discussed at a PNP divisional conference in Manchester Mandeville last night. More from TVJ's Ashane Masters.
Senior members of the opposition suggest there may be a threat to the cybersecurity and the safety of information of Jamaicans. Speaking at a PNP divisional conference on the weekend, Central Manchester Member of Parliament Peter Bunting expressed concern after he pointed out that from information he received, an Israeli company has been tipped to provide cybersecurity software to the Andrew Holness-led government. But that decision is not going down well with Mr. Bunting. He noted that from further information gathered, a number of governments that have had access to the system have used it against its citizens. Hence, he is questioning the intention of the Holness administration.
This is software that they use to infect your phone, and it can read your WhatsApp, your messages, it can reveal what is on your phone. So essentially, they use your own phone to spy on you.
Mr. Bunting says, based on what he has learned, it has heightened his concern as there is no modern legislation which governs the use of that technology.
We must be very vigilant about what is going on. Everything that they're doing so far is shrouded in secrecy around this. If we couldn't trust them with Petroja, if we couldn't trust them with NESA, if we couldn't trust them at Ministry of Education, why do you feel we can trust them with the very privacy of what is on our cell phones?
As to getting more information on any deal which was struck in Israel,
we're going to start asking some very hard questions about this Israeli spying capability that is being acquired, and to make sure it is not going to be used on the citizens of Jamaica in a way to violate our privacy and in a way to frustrate the democracy which we have worked so hard for in this country.
Ashane Masters, TVJ News.
Technology Minister Favour Williams is assuring Jamaicans they will have more control over their information when the Data Protection Act is passed. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica program on Monday, Mrs. Williams says Jamaicans will be able to request their data.
In that new regime, we will be more in control of the data about us and the data that's generated about us, because it forms part of our identity. So persons requesting data, they have to be specific about what it is they're requesting it for, how long they're going to use it, and there are going to be rules to follow. Like right now, when you put your data up online and you give it to whatever service, you have no control over it. You can't even ask them back for it later on.
The minister noted that a sensitization project will inform the public about data protection and how the Act will benefit them. In the meantime, she explains how the Data Protection Act is linked to cybersecurity.
Having here in Jamaica the capability to be able to identify the threats that are, on the horizon, or here, having a system whereby there can be reporting of cyber incidents. So you in your own personal capacity, if you've had that, we'd like for you to know there's a website you can go to and log the information. Businesses can do.
More concerns in St. Catherine about the expansion of the Dovecot burial grounds. At the recent meeting of the St. Catherine Municipal Corporation, councillors took representatives of the National Environment and Planning Agency NEPA to task. They were concerned about the granting of a permit for the expansion into Mercury Gardens and St. John's Heights, citing possible underground water pollution.
Set of people from NEPA came here. So, Chairman, they told us about, when we asked them about well, they told us about two wells. The well at Green Acres and the well at Friendship. If Dovecot present site is being put into action, the well on Mr. Williams' property will it cannot be used.
Some councillors, however, did not support that concern.
I don't see where Dovecot's development is going to affect that area and why we should actually stay here within the municipal corporation and St. Catherine by extension and fight against a burial ground. You don't have enough land space in St. Catherine to erect another burial site as we see it fit, because every one of these land spaces, it is going towards housing development.
Director of Applications for NEPA, Gregory Bennett, says all environmental safeguards were followed. He explained that the process started with the screening of the application.
Based on the screening, it was determined that an environmental impact assessment is done. The purpose of an EIA is to assist with the decision-making process. As you know, of course, there are a number of environmental issues that are often related to the operation and establishment of a cemetery. That was done. The technical EIA, the EIA was submitted and it was circulated wide and varied. It was also posted on the Bureau's website and all the various libraries and so on, and designated areas as specified by the procedure.
Managing Director at Paradigm Capital, Gail Dixon, is urging lending institutions to be more responsible when offering loans. She says they sometimes contribute to the debt burden some Jamaicans face. Ms. Dixon was speaking on The Exchange, a Financial Gleaner and JNN Business Forum.
I think lending institutions, again, irrespective of whether or not it's a bank, a credit union, or microfinance, have to take responsibility as well. You have individuals coming into you that are borrowing. You're the professional. They need your input. So even with debt consolidation, it's not something that Paradigm does just for the sake of it. What people need to look at is compounded debt. So even if you borrow from me today and you go to another institution tomorrow, keep in mind that whatever the balance is, you're carrying it over to another institution. So even if the interest rate is lower, the fact is if Company A was 10% and Company B is 5%, the balance is still carrying 10% and the new loan is now compounding. So we're not having those conversations. One of the things that we try to do is make sure that we're having a conversation with someone. If you have 3 months remaining on your loan, we do not encourage individuals to consolidate, tighten your belt. But if the lending institution is not having clear, transparent, responsible conversation with the borrowers, they will never become responsible borrowers.
Residents in Lando St Thomas are still up in arms about promises by the government and the National Works Agency to reconstruct the Cod Pen Bridge in their community. The bridge, which is currently supported by 2 pieces of wood, connects the communities of Landoe, Ramble and Cedar Valley. In March, a fire protest was staged, forcing the intervention of firefighters and the police. They contend that their pleas for work to be done have fallen on deaf ears. With their lives now resting on the beams of 2 pieces of wood, residents are making another appeal to the authorities.
Well, right now, my knowledge is very risky because more time when I have to wait to go over it, boy, if you don't have a good judgment, most definitely will drop, and you understand? So I think a full time now something done. Yeah.
The councillor for the Landoe Division, Edwin Marr, about the slow response.
It had been brought up in nearly all the meetings. Even last month's meeting, it was brought up.
And no address has been made as yet?
No address. And we asked the Secretary, the CEO of the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation, if we are not getting any response from NAA in general, what we are asking is that Mr. Steven shall be invited to the meeting for him to tell us about the bridge itself and other structural defects that is rampant all over the parish.
It is inconsiderate and unfair. That comment from Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton during an interview at the opening of the Spanish Town Infirmary in St. Catherine. Dr. Tufton says family members have been avoiding their responsibilities by leaving their relatives at the Spanish Town Hospital, especially during the holiday periods.
We have cases where during holiday time, family members literally take their loved ones and drop them off at the gate of the hospital or the door and abandon them, leave them because they want the time off during the holidays. A hospital is not a hotel, it is not an infirmary, it is not a guest house. It is intended to deal with persons who require medical care.
Dr. Tufton suggests that legal action should be considered for persons who continue to abandon their relatives.
If they are not infirmed, if they have relatives and who have their properties, utilizing their properties, then we will have to look at the court action as outlined by the mayor to take stronger action against those persons.
The Spanish Town Infirmary was built to combat limited bed spaces at the Spanish Town Hospital. With the facility now in operation, social cases will be removed from the hospital to the infirmary, which can accommodate 30 residents.
It has freed up 30 beds that normally sick persons would be left sitting in wheelchairs or on benches. They are now able to be lying on a bed, courtesy of this facility.
We will also exercise the option of placing some of them in private nursing homes because we believe it's cheaper to do that than to keep them in the hospital beds and deprive Jamaicans who really need the inpatient care.
3 people, including a 5-month-old baby, are now homeless after fire gutted their home this morning in Fernandez Garden, St. Mary. It's unclear what caused the fire. Head of the Port Maria Fire Department, Sergeant G. Samuels, explains what he saw.
We arrived at the scene at about 10 minutes to 9. When we arrived, we saw 1-bedroom dwelling house totally burnt down. After carrying out our investigation, it is undetermined at the moment.
Left with nowhere to turn, one of the occupants says it's a major setback for the family.
Me and my baby father live here and we have everything. Last night we spent the night around my mommy's house and this morning I got up. We only got news that his house is on fire with everything in it, every single thing. I have my poor little baby. She just born, she's not even 6 months old yet and she start lose everything.
So you have nowhere to go now. What are you going to do?
Well, we're just going to have to start all over again. In the meantime, I'm going to have to stay with my mommy and try to see if we can put back certain things together. I don't have no help to do nothing. I'm not working. He's the only one that's working. All his tools that he has to use, all of them catch a fire. I'm so confused.
The fire at the retirement disposal site in St. James has been extinguished. In a statement this morning, Western Parks and Market Waste Management said that smoke is still in the area and heavy-duty equipment are working assiduously to suppress it. The agency pointed out that normality is expected to return on Wednesday. The WPM Waste Management said it was alerted to a fire at the facility on Saturday around midnight. The Jamaica Fire Brigade was notified and units were dispatched to the site. And in sports, the Reggae Girls ended their final friendly match on home soil on a winning note after a 3-1 win over Panama at the National Stadium on Sunday. Star striker Khadija Bunishaw gave Jamaica the lead just before the half-hour mark and doubled it with her second of the evening in the 49th minute. Panama captain Natalia Mills pulled one back in the 68th minute. But veteran striker Shakira Duncan, in her first game for Jamaica since 2014, sealed the victory in minute 73. The result extends Jamaica's unbeaten run to 6 games. Since qualifying for the World Cup in October last year, the Reggae Girls have scored 11 goals in their last 5 games. The team is expected to travel to Florida later today for a training camp before taking on Scotland in their final warm-up game on May 28. The coaching staff is expected to name the final 23-member squad for the FIFA Women's World Cup in France this week. The Reggae Girls will open their campaign against Brazil on June 9 before taking on Italy on June 14 and Australia on June 18. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.